Hi guys, my name is Amish Tripathi and I'm the director of the Nehru Center. The Nehru Center is the cultural wing of the Indian High Commission in the UK, and we've been in existence for many decades, and we organize wonderful events at this very auditorium. You can register for our newsletter at our website nehrucenter.org.uk. You don't need to write them down, they will be displayed at the bottom of the screen. You can also come to our Facebook page, which is a verified page, the Nehru Center. You can follow updates on all our events on Twitter as well, the Nehru Center, that's also a verified account. Or you can come to our YouTube channel, again, the Nehru Center. We are nothing if not consistent. I hope you do come to our online channels and enjoy the events that we're putting up for you. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Namaste, Jai Hind.
Hi guys, my name is Amish. As you just saw in the video just prior, I'm the director of the Nehru Center. Thank you so much for joining this program. Um, as you know, I write books on traditional Indian spirituality and stories, and one of the things that comes to us from our Indian ancients is that there is something to be learned from all forms of life. The Indian ancients never believed that humanity was the finest creation of the divine. We were just one among many others. And there's something to be learned from all creations of the divine, including plants, animals, everyone. And this book by Dr. Manjiri Prabhu, which I've enjoyed, called The Doctrine of Peace, is one such exploration into the lessons, spiritual lessons that can be drawn from among the most loving of teachers, dogs. If you, I'm sure you'd, those among you who know our texts well would know that at the end of the Mahabharata, when Lord Yudhishthir was climbing up to Devalok, when all his siblings and his wife actually couldn't reach, they actually fell down. The one who accompanied him all the way up to Devalok, to the heavens, was a dog. Let's explore what we can learn from dogs, from Manjari Prabhu and Rakhee Bakshee. If they could be brought up on stage, please. Thanks, Manjari. Thank you, Rakhee, for joining the Nehru Center platform. I'm going to leave the conversation to you guys, but before that, let me just, we are a Sarkari place, so let me do the formal introduction of the two of you. Dr. Manjari Prabhu, who is the author of the book that is being discussed here. Dr. Manjari Prabhu is an award-winning international author, a short filmmaker, and founder-director of two successful festivals, PILF, which is the Pune International Lit Fest, and IFSI, which is focused on spirituality. She has directed over 200 children's TV programs, more than 50 short fiction and travel films, and has authored 18 books. She is productive beyond measure. I'd love to know what the secret sauce is, Manjari. Uh, Dr. Prabhu has been acknowledged as a pioneer in India among women writers of mystery fiction, and she has a diverse global fan following. She's also the first female mystery author to be published outside India and has been labeled as the Indian Agatha Christie. And to be in conversation with Dr. Prabhu is Rakhee Bakshee. Rakhee is the founder and editor in chief of Her World India, with 2 decades of experience in India as a broadcaster and editor on Prime News media houses. She serves as media consultant to SIIC and IIT Kanpur, IIT Kanpur currently. Ms. Bakshee has also served as media advisor earlier in the Parliament of India and as a senior editor anchor on Rajya Sabha TV. She became the first woman correspondent of DD News to cover Iraq War. As the bureau chief of Z News channel, she covered challenging news assignments in the region of Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh. She has also covered the Kargil War as well as news stories in the Northeast region. She has been a writer for English newspapers, including the Hindustan Times. She is an eminent public speaker and recipient of many honors and awards. Fantastic CVs of two very fine ladies, and we are
Thank you.
delighted to. Thank you. And no, we are delighted and honored to have you on the Nehru Center platform.
Thanks.
And before I hand over finally to you, we're going to do a book launch of yours as well. Manjiri, we don't get the pleasure, as I've said very often, of ripping apart
I know.
wrapping paper these days because physical events don't happen as often. But there's an online book launch, so let's see that video.
Lovely, lovely.
Yeah, all credit is due to the brilliant tech team which manages this, which is headed by Vineet, an absolute brilliant guy and really among the leaders of the team
Super.
that manages Nehru Center online programs.
Thank
Great
you very
work,
much.
Vineet. And Rakhee, over to you.
Thank you, and we're truly delighted and honored, first of all, and on behalf of Manjiri, I would say, Rakhee, that Amish Tripathi ji, it's really an honor for us, and truly, you make us comfortable actually to begin this conversation, and I think that's the true takeaway that we are. I mean, we don't want to even leave you here, but we have to now start our own conversation.
Well, you can stay. You can stay. You don't have to go.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid I have to jump into another meeting, and in fact, I've delayed that because I didn't want to miss this. I wanted to have the pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And I think as a person who's going to start the conversation, Amishji, I can only say that I take that spirit and energy from you, and a little bit of creative flavor that I can steal. I can say that, and begin this conversation. Thank you so much. बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत धन्यवाद आपका हमारे साथ आने के लिए.
Thank you.
So here it is now. I think the beginning has been so great. We had Amish Tripathi launching the book of Dr. Manjiri Prabhu, which is called, as you saw, The Doctrine of Peace. And as the title suggests, and I would like to also show you, the cover, though, of course, Amish ji has already shown it to you. But I would also like to show it to you, first of all. Manjiri, you can also show the book, and here is. I can show it to you on my mobile. And let's do the online because it's an online season and courtesy of me, we're trying to also learn. But thank you for joining us, all of you who've joined us here. We are truly delighted that you've joined us. Also, it's not about a book that we're going to talk to Dr. Manjiri Prabhu about. It's an experience I think we are going to, in the next 45 minutes, an hour, relive here through her own experiences. But first of all, a very regular question to you, Dr. Manjiri Prabhu. 2007, I think you started writing or thinking about, and it took you some time. First of all, the idea itself is very unique, right from the title, The Doctrine of Peace, to the idea that you should talk all about an animal which is all around us, but we don't think so deeply about it as you thought, and then you penned it down. Tell us more about that. And welcome, of course, to this conversation, Dr. Manjiri Prabhu.
Thank you, Rakhee. Call me Manjiri, please. And thank you so much, for this warm welcome, even to Nehru Center, to Amish, and to Vineet, and to you. And it's really a pleasure being here today. Firstly, like you said, we are so used to dogs being around. And so was I when I was growing up in my growing years. But at some point in my life, I realized that we are really taking these dogs for granted. And it was, of course, it happened very naturally to me because, my dog Sheena entered my life, and from there on, my life changed. So there was a life before Sheena and a life after Sheena. So there are two Manjiris, actually, honestly, and the second Manjiri is the one you see now. So yes, when I realized that what was happening around in the world around me, that we tend to take dogs for granted, whether as our companions, as our friends, or at least, dogs like a nuisance value on the street. So there are these two paradox images of a dog. And I realized that we were going about it all wrong. Dogs are in our life for a reason. We have actually been associated with dogs. So dogs have been our companions for more than 15,000 years. That's a long time. It was the first domesticated animal. And there has to be a reason for this human-dog bond. And we all know that, when dogs are in our lives, we are very different people. Mm-hmm. And anybody who has a dog, knows how much love and caring and affection and, bonding goes on between a human and a dog. And I realized that this this bonding has to have more of a meaning than just a casual, I have a dog or I have a pet. And that is why I began thinking about this very deeply. And the idea to the book came to me way back in the 90s. I started writing it in 2007, like you said, and it finally came out in 2021. So you can imagine how much of energy, emotion, time I've invested in just this one concept, that dogs can lead us to world peace.
And that is what makes the book really, really unique and truly stands out, because it's a genre in itself. As it was introduced, Dr. Manjiri Prabhu is known for mystery writing. Very few, women writers, in fact, has been compared to Agatha Christie of India, actually, and that's what she's called as. Somebody who likes also looking at science fiction, somebody who comes from a TV background, somebody who understands film production, somebody who's written scripts. So variety of roles that she plays as a creative person. But now talking about dog, and it's not only about a dog. I think if you read the book, which I really recommend that all of you must read, because it's entirely a different experience when you read it. It's about this whole bond between humankind and animals. And which is becoming so very important and relevant in today's times, we would say. But as an author, to bring a different kind of sector and experience all together, a section, a chapter, I mean, so many chapters on dog. Manjiri, tell us more about that. This whole, horizon of creativity by talking about an animal and a dog, especially here.
You're absolutely right, Rakhee. I have covered a spectrum of genres and experiences in life, but all of that is my passion for writing, for producing, for scripting, for films. All of that is a very professional kind of take on a professional take on the things that I've been doing. Dogs are my passion, and dogs represent my philosophy of life, which is love and compassion. And this whole thing, when I started writing this book, I realized that I couldn't just say, love dogs, care for dogs. I can say that in one line. But to write a whole book on this concept of serving dogs and caring for them to attain peace and internal peace required a very different kind of approach to the book. And that is why, like you said, the chapters and all in the book, I have divided the book into two parts. One is Dog as a Friend, where I talk about things that people usually know, but probably don't kind of think of them in their day-to-day life. But I've brought, stories forth where the bond, human and dog bond, becomes thicker and thicker. But the second part is the one where the dog is a spiritual catalyst. And therein, I bring in the real spiritual journey that you can take with the dog. So these are the two angles that I've approached in the book. And the whole point was not just to put my theory forward, what I felt and what I felt from the bottom of my heart, but was to prove it with stories of people, animal lovers across the world, and from people who are, authorities in different fields. Like that I've interviewed several people in it. So all of this together, comes to a conclusive end in the book, which leads to the ninefold path. So the book required.
But before you come to that's a very interesting part, and we'll keep it really, really big, and we'll talk about that, the sutras. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a big surprise and truly a delight for you that we are going to talk about. But before that, as you rightly said, Manjiri, the interviews. So the kind of people you selected and the way you extracted their emotions and feelings and their thoughts on dogs, and the kind of, again, the variety of experience that a dog's own, activity in life brings to us. I mean, how did you do that? I mean, it's painstakingly researched kind of, work that you've done, Manjiri, of course, through the views, talking to them, selecting those people, getting their thoughts. Just talk about it more.
Well, so like I said, that I knew that I needed some kind of, I wouldn't say endorsement. It's not an endorsement. It's more of a comparing of my philosophy with philosophies of other people. And so I set about choosing people from different walks of life. I chose Dr. Jane Goodall, who is a UN peace messenger, but who has worked all her life with chimpanzees. But she claims that dogs are her most favorite animal. Now, that's a very interesting concept. Then, of course, I interviewed Mrs. Menaka Gandhi, who's was responsible for most of the animal laws in our country today, and who's an animal rights activist. Then I spoke to Dia Mirza, who's also a UN peace messenger, but works for climate change and environment. I spoke to David G, who's actually how should I call him? He's a spiritualist, he's a thinker, he's a teacher, but who meditates with his dog Peaches and says that Peaches teaches. So I went about finding people who may not necessarily work with dogs or love dogs or whatever. They had their own philosophies. But when I started speaking to them and sharing my theory with them, I realized that they were assessing me. They were, I didn't interview them for them to say, yes, the DOGtrine will work. I went there to share my theory with them and compare it with what they felt with their experiences, with their backgrounds and with their work. And while we were talking, we both, when you read the interviews, you would understand that when we were talking, they kind of mentally, I could see that they were evaluating what I was saying. They were assessing it, they were analyzing it, and they were coming to a conclusion right while we were discussing it that this could work. And I think that was the best part of the interviews, because I didn't monitor them. I didn't push them towards the DOGtrine. It was a conversation which flowed naturally towards the DOGtrine of peace. And that was very enriching for me too, because I felt I wasn't working in isolation with a theory, which no one knows about, or no one would even probably kind of consider seriously. I'll just give you a small example why I'm saying this. Just yesterday, someone said to me that it was very brave of you to write this book. And when I thought about it, I realized that what she was trying to imply was that in a country or in a world where, spiritual gurus abound, and they've got their well-known paths to a higher being and to a stress-free life, and also where majority of people were non-animal lovers. When that is the condition in the world today, I come up with a theory, an organic theory of finding peace through dogs. And for her, that was a very brave thing. And I kind of understood where she was coming from. But what she didn't understand was that I was trying to give an organic spiritual blueprint for inner peace. So, well, in that sense, I was brave. And I would say that probably my publisher, Readomania, and Dipankar Mukherjee was braver to publish this unique book. So, so when these people whom I interviewed endorsed my theory, I felt really happy, that I was on the right track. And this whole book was heading towards a proper conclusion.
And very well, you said congratulations to Readomania and Dipankar Mukherjee also for taking up this theme along with you, and you really kind of merged and synergized, their understanding of the subject and your feelings and expressions. So you talk about, I would say here, threads which are far but close. So for example, as Amishji talked about the Mahabharata episode and how dog comes in and plays a very important role. The spiritual part to also, when you talk about the street dogs, the smartness and the wisdom that comes through, but wisdom of course remains the big word here, but there are different ways of looking at it in different situations and different times altogether. So you bring in different threads and connect them through the dog's life, through what dog brings to us and all that here, Manjiri.
Yes. Yeah, that's true, because I wanted to bring in a 360-degree angle. When he passes away and he reaches out to us from beyond that. So the spiritual connection of a dog and a human being, even after the dog has passed away. So all these angles I wanted to bring in, because he wasn't just, a dog doesn't just teach us something in his human form, in his dog form on this earth. It also teaches us a lot after it has passed away. And I wanted all this to come through because, see, the DOGtrine of Peace is a book that works at the scientific level. It works at a vibrational level. It works at a psychological level, philosophical level, and a spiritual level. So all these angles had to be brought out through the voices of, animal lovers, through my own voice, and through the interviews.
Very well said. Two words which come to my mind. One is empathy and two is telepathy. So, this whole idea of how an empathy is such a big word now, as we know, universally. And that's what you sense through these dogs, which is very true. Which is so interesting also, Manjiri. And then the telepathy part, which comes the smart part of it also, that they can really sense before all of us, and they bring to you a lot of alertness. And look at the way dogs are used. They are used as companions. They're used as friends. They are used as, even in some cases, people who understand much more than us and bring knowledge, in the sniffing ones also. So they bring in so much and so much of variety. By writing and through this process of writing, Manjari, what kind of emotions did you yourself go through? There are some questions coming in. Some people are greeting us. They're saying good evening, and we say good evening to you as well. And we're very delighted that you all have joined. But Manjari, yes. So sympathy, telepathy, empathy. And in fact, sympathy would be a little away. It's empathy, telepathy.
Well, you cannot write a book like this and not be emotional about it, very honestly. In fact, when I was writing the book, it happened for many years, but in the last 1 year before the book got published, and I was writing it, and I went through so much, I can't even tell you. It was very deep. There was a shift in my whole emotional existence while I was writing this book, because I felt responsible. I felt that the kind of emotions and love that I feel for a dog had to be put across in this book at a level where even a non-animal lover would understand it. And I felt that huge responsibility on me. And for that reason only, I wanted to make sure that the book covered every angle and every aspect of the human-dog bond. And while I was writing it, there were so many, because it's part autobiographical, like I've already said in my book also, that there are certain emotions that I had to relive to bring out for the audience, because there were certain things, like I've said about, like I said, where dogs reach out from beyond, or creativity and productivity, and how dogs affect us. And there's so many incidents in my own life which I've brought forth, really brought out the emotions in me, and it was a big emotional journey for me.
So
Very big.
Krish wanted to know about your writing process. Krish had a question. Audience joining in. Krish wanted to know about your writing process. He's a fan of your thrillers, he says. And the writing of the book was cathartic for you, Manjari, says Farida. Farida says, thank you, Farida, for joining.
Yes. It was cathartic,
and
it was very cathartic, and I seriously felt that I was chosen to write this book, and I feel grateful for that. I do believe that as a writer, you're chosen to write certain novels. So whether it's my mystery novels or this book, but this book particularly, I felt that I had to be the voice of the dogs and let the world know that there's much more than we really understand about this relationship. And I felt that I was kind of chosen to write it, and that in itself was not only cathartic, but I felt very blessed doing it.
No, and also you talk about not only spirituality in different sections, you also talk about yoga. So, for example, you're talking about the whole creative aspects also the dog brings. As we were discussing, that if we divide it into 3-4 parts, then one would be spiritual, second would be creative, the third would be human bond that really reflects in the whole book. I mean, that I would say is the real overarching theme of the book. The brilliant bond between the humankind and the dog or the animals comes through. So what was it like to look at yoga and what dog brings to the whole spiritual awakening, so to say, here?
Well, see, like I said, that I keep saying this all the time, that there are many paths to spiritual awakening. By spiritual awakening, of course, I don't mean going to the Himalayas and attaining the ultimate. I don't know if anybody's done that, but when I say that you are more, how should I say, elevated, you are at a higher level of consciousness. So many things are happening when you're getting spiritually awakened. Now, there are many paths to it. And I keep saying this, that if you want to achieve a 10 in spiritual awakening, you can approach many paths. There could be one path which gives you 5 plus 5 is 10. There's another path which can give you 8 plus 2 is 10. Another path which can give you 7 plus 3 is 10. Through the doctrine of peace, I'm trying to give you a path which says 5 into 2 is 10. It is a multiplying process. Okay, it's love multiplies, compassion multiplies. It's a snowballing effect that gives you love and peace. But while I was saying this, I had to compare it with what yoga and the usual methods give you. I wanted to compare these two and tell people that you don't need to regularly practice yoga to attain spiritual awakening. You can do a simple thing like adopt a street dog, take care of him, and the doctrine of peace automatically starts working on you to make you a spiritually awakened person. And that was why I brought in yoga, which is great in itself, and I have nothing to say about it. It's absolutely a wonderful established method of elevating yourself. But I was also giving another parallel method of doing it. If you do it along with yoga, superb. But even if you do it on its own, it's going to lead you to a path of enlightenment.
Amazing. Every time that you talk about this book, I feel equally delighted to understand and to kind of get that kind of, the current that flows when we talk about, these dogs, which are so many characters that you talk about, which is
Yes.
around you, so many anecdotes and stories that you're also sharing in the book, which is so brilliant. And that's such a wonderful experience. But you also wrote poems. There is a beautiful song, and we wish that we could have played, but maybe we can always share with you in any other form sometime later. But to also celebrate it like that, Manjiri. So, for example, writing a poem, and in the song, she says that we miss you and we love you. The kind of emotion that comes through those lyrics. And I think Manjiri was really also amazed about at the talent that, I mean, so many things that you unravel each time in terms of the merit. Tell us more about the creative processes involved here.
Well, for this book, it's dogs, dogs, and dogs. And in the book, there is a chapter called Creativity, Productivity, and Dogs. Okay.
Dogs.
Yes. And I've given so many examples, including mine. My dog, Tuggy, you can see her behind here. She was my muse for 13 years. I wrote about at least 8 books in her presence. She would sit at my feet and her furry body on my feet, and I used to write. And so I'll share a very small story regarding her. She used to sit there, and when she passed away, she was my muse. There was no doubt about it. When she passed away, I was completely shattered and devastated. And I was writing this book, Voice of the Runes, at that point. There was a submission. She passed away in March. I had a submission in April, and I just couldn't write, because I felt that my muse had gone away forever, and my will and desire to write had also gone away. I'm sharing this because I want you to know the connectivity of creativity with dogs. Okay. So, and then I just sat there and I cried, and I felt I should have done this to save her. I should have done that to save her. And I just couldn't write. And I was getting these calls from my publisher saying, where is the manuscript? And I hadn't written anything beyond a couple of chapters. Finally, I just, I literally spoke to Tuggy. I could feel her around me. And although she wasn't there physically, I could feel her around me. And I prayed to Tuggy. I said, I really beseeched. I said, please continue to be my muse in spirit form. Even if you're not here, help me complete this book. Just help me. You won't believe, Rakhee, the next minute I opened my laptop and my fingers just flew on the laptop, and page after page, I just started writing. I was sitting on a couch, and the couch had a dent on it. I wrote continuously for a month, non-stop, just getting up for necessities and basics and all. But I just wrote, and at the end of the month, the book was ready. And I think till date, it was my best book, apart from the Doctrine of Peace. But fiction-wise, I feel it was my best book because it's gotten all the emotions and all the love I felt for Tuggy and everything. So when I say creativity, productivity, it's all connected. Dogs help you at so many levels. You can't even imagine the kind of influence they can have on your life.
What a beautiful story you've shared here. And I would like to take Arunji's question here about this sense of loss. So basically, he's talking about how do you console yourself, when you lose a pet, a dog. And I mean, how do you come to terms with it?
I know I've got a special chapter in the book on that, not on how to overcome it, but how the grieving that happens, the process of grieving, when you lose a human being and when you lose a dog, these two are totally, they kind of create separate emotions. I mean, science says that when you lose a dog, the intensity of the grief is so much more than when you lose a human being, and this science has proven. So yes, it's a very difficult thing, losing, because I took 2 years to get over my one dog, and 2 years getting over another dog. But here's how I look at it. I feel that if we don't take, most people say, oh, it's so painful when you lose a dog, I don't want a dog ever in my life again. I mean, that's the usual reaction because you're trying to protect yourself. But what I say is, if that dog hadn't entered your life, you would not have enjoyed its company. It wouldn't have given you all the joys and memories that you would have, and you would have been a less richer person, a poorer person, for not having had the dog in your life. Apart from that, if it's a street dog you've picked up, you've given him life. You've done a good deed, and you've kind of created what a blessing, or your good karma along with it, if you want to look at it that way. So it works both ways. So having a dog and losing it is only a process. The dog, I feel, doesn't go away anywhere. It's always there in your heart. Sometimes it comes back to you in different ways. It could be in the form of a dog, could be in the form of another human being. This also I've shared in the book. So I feel parting is not necessarily losing. Okay, it could be gaining in another way.
What a brilliant and a very, very sound spiritual idea, as you exhibit and express here, Manjiri. I'm really, truly, truly impressed by this kind of a thought also. But before we go ahead in this conversation, let's also play that book video. This book, as now you know about, is not only doctrine, it's about peace as well, and so many things. And of course, once we play the video, we'll again continue the conversation, talk more about the different dimensions that this book brings to you all about. Arunji is one reader who's looking forward to buy and read the book. But thank you so much for all of you, all pet lovers. I call on you in this conversation to be a part of this beautiful experience and join us here. Please. What a soulful video it is, I must say. I mean, I was really moved. And so I'm sure all those who are watching must be. You bring that that beautiful connection, that dog bring to us. And through this book, I think you're really, really making us joyful, Manjiri, I must say. And what more can I say? That you have this knack of bringing the unknown right from your other mystery fictions or science fictions to this one, actually, the unknown part. I mean, they are around us, as I said in the beginning, but you bring all that they have inside them and how they touch our inner souls, actually, through their own, being, so to say.
Yes.
And that's what in this beautiful and very unique book, I must say, there's one of the unique book that I've really known about. And I'm equally, I've just finished, looking at it, reading many parts of it, but I think a word to word reading is still due, and I will do that. Arunji, of course, keeps saying thank you, and thank you, Arunji, for being with us
Thank you.
continuously. And
Thank you.
let's say we would like some other voices, of course, to also come in and share their own experiences, because I'm sure there is this club, there is this collective feeling of everybody being together when they love dogs. So there is this society, this universe, Manjiri, isn't it, that you're trying to build up. So
Yes.
many people, so many souls who are connecting through these dogs, and the love,
Yes.
as Ratan Tata says, unconditional love is what they bring
Yes.
about.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I first of all, thank you for saying such beautiful things about my writing. I really love that.
Yeah, Krish says that. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's that? Okay, yeah, I'll come to you, Krish. I will talk about my thrillers also. The whole process in this book. Yes, like you said, connecting souls. So I do believe that the world is, you look at the world as divided by borders, by
Exactly.
castes, and by
The strife. The
yeah,
strife.
so it's strife, everything. There's so many things happening in the world: physical boundaries, geography, caste, culture. The world is completely a pattern of non-melangeable, non-mixable things. So there's only one thing that connects all of this, and that one thing that makes us all humane, and that is the feeling of love and compassion. So I feel that if you have to divide the world, into two parts: people who are compassionate and loving, and people who are non-compassionate and non-loving. For me, these are the two worlds. And obviously there are these two worlds, because otherwise there wouldn't be so much violence and strife, like you said, and cruelty in the world. So the world is definitely divided by humane people and inhumane people. So my effort through this book is definitely to connect these two worlds, and to make to bridge the gap. And I hope that some of the love and compassion from this world will seep into the other world through this book. That is really what I want to do.
And Prashant, of course, who's joined us, was saying that,
Yeah.
Prashant, you're saying what a soulful thought, that dogs don't depart, that they're always with us, and they're
Yes.
always in our memories, and they do come back as human beings. Do you really
Yes.
believe in that? He's talking about, they being they never go away. They come
Yes.
back, actually.
Yes.
What would you say about that? This is Prashant.
Yes, absolutely. They do come back, Prashant. And if you read my book, I have given you a very personal story in the book. I've shared a very personal story, where a dog from my life has come back into our life in the form of a human being. I don't want to reveal too much right now, but it does happen that dogs do come back to us, either as dogs or as beings, some being. In my life, they came back as a human being. So yes, it is possible, because like I said, the bond goes beyond this physical existence. The human and dog bond is not limited to the physicality of our existence. There is a spiritual existence, there is an existence of spirit, and that is something we need to consider every single time we adopt a dog.
Okay, before I really tell you to also read your favorite excerpt from the book, talk about the divinity part also. You were talking about this connection between, whether in a spiritual sense, we look up to what we call the force, the God, whichever way. You also talk about the religious, the religion, and what is religion.
Yeah.
We all have different interpretations, of course.
Yeah.
So talk about the divinity part, which is something, again, which is very subtle, very sublime, but again with something which stabilizes us from within, and that's what dogs bring to us.
Yeah. Well, so I look at divinity in two ways. One is that, all of us, when we are born, we are in our purest form. Whether it's animals or children, we are in our purest form. We are in our divine form. It is as we grow, as along the way, when we are showered with, lots of career choices and advices and society pressures and career pressures, that we somehow lose the divinity along the way. There's no one to blame. I don't want to talk about who's to blame and who isn't to blame, but we do lose that divinity. Now, all of us, I feel, have a certain divine chamber in our hearts. And this divine chamber is shut in the majority of us. And There is a surefire method of opening this divine chamber, which is a direct connect to the divinity, to the universe, to God, whoever you believe in, I feel. And the doctrine of peace helps you in opening this divine chamber. So when I look at divinity, I look at dogs as a divine presence that help you to open the divine chamber in your heart to connect you to the divinity. So this is the triangle that one works with when we work with dogs to find peace, love, enlightenment in life.
I think the next one could be, a love story which is woven around dogs. I think, Manjiri, that's an idea
Why
coming from
not? Why not?
and the viewers, you can always join in, and you can give in your comments as you're doing, because this is a brilliant conversation going on with Manjiri, and who always brings you delightful surprises. And if you read other books, of course, somebody has asked about her writing process and how she actually creates books out of manuscripts, and how maybe you can talk about that. But before that, Manjiri, why don't you also read for us and bring that delight of those excerpts from the book to all these
So,
viewers who are watching us right now?
I will read a small excerpt, and in the book, I've talked about dogs as healers. Dogs heal you in many ways. So not just when you're ill or you're stressed, but there are ways of healing that go beyond our understanding. And I want to narrate a very small, uh, you know, read a very small excerpt. This is about after my dog Tuggy passed away, and I used to look after many community dogs, and all of them passed away one by one, and only one got left behind. That was Bruno. So this is Bruno's very short story. I'll read that.
Okay.
Dogs can heal you in numerous ways, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I remember when Tuggy passed away, I was devastated. 6 months before that, three of my other community dogs, Sandy, Raja, and Benji, had also passed away either because of an illness or old age. So Tuggy's death was a big blow. Now only Bruno remained. Bruno was a brown, rough-haired Indie with the sharpest ears ever. He had come to us when the river across my house had flooded and brought in this weak, scrawny pup. He was haughty and moody, but extremely possessive. He was dominating and a fantastic watchdog. When he was the only dog remaining in my side of the lane, I knew he was lonely and craved for company. I also saw that he was kind of giving up on life. He lost his will to chase vehicles or bark at strangers, and it worried me until Tuggy passed away. After that, suddenly, he made sure that he was around me. He knew I was sad, so he tried to be playful at age 15. I suddenly realized that he had stepped back from letting go to embracing life again. It was as if he knew that if anything happened to him, I would be completely shattered and lonely. So he hung on for a year till I was fairly out of my grief and concentrating totally on him. He took my attention away from my grief, at least in momentary spurts, allowing me time to heal. I'm extremely grateful for the role he played in that 1 year post Dougie. Without Bruno, I may not have lasted emotionally. When he passed away, it was quietly, without any fuss, and there was an air of contentment around him, like he had done his duty till the very, very last moment.
How brilliant again. But also that you talk about, the kind of duty. I mean, duty now you're talking about, and duty
Yes.
is not duty in the real sense, but duty in its very, I would say, emotional sense, that you feel responsible. So I'm talking about the dogs, how they feel responsible. They are
Yes.
so
Yeah.
alert and they're so protective about you, more than maybe,
Yes.
your other siblings, family, or friends. That is the closest, and such a beautiful experience, I'm sure, Manjari, that
Yeah.
that I will protect you. I will first of all look out for things that endanger you. I would look out for
Yes.
things that should harm you. And that is such a beautiful feeling. We all look for that cover, that emotional cover, that security, that sense of being safe, warm, and all that, Manjari. And that's what dogs bring to you. But before that,
Absolutely.
Vasundhara is writing something, absolute healers. She's also talking about healing
Yeah.
experience. I would have never recovered from my mother's death if it was not about dogs. So
Yeah.
I think these are so many stories coming through also, Manjari. I think
Yes. Yeah.
these comments are brilliant, actually. And thank you,
Yeah.
Vasundhara, for joining us and telling us all this. They are the reason I ever came out of my own depression. So let's talk about this healing aspect. Let's talk about how it actually gives you stability, takes you out of your own emotional, I think, disturbances, so to say.
Yeah, totally. Not just take you out, they save you, literally. I mean, there are stories in the book where, people who are going through depression couldn't have kids. Dogs came into their lives and took away this really deathly kind of, suicidal depression away because a dog entered her life. Or very famous people have also written in this. I don't want to reveal names right now, but people who were depressed after their mother's passing away healed because of dogs in their life. And I'm going to go one step further and say they don't, like you said, they don't just protect you physically, they give up their lives for you. And this definitely happens that, even in one of the interviews, Dr. Ananda Balyogi has said this, that when the universe requires a life, when there is some kind of danger in the human's life, the dog steps forward and takes it on himself. And this I have known personally. There are hundreds of stories where dogs give up their lives for you. That's the kind of protection you have. It's not a cover, it's a shield. You have this shield. It's like a mrityunjay, what should you call it, a mantra in the form of a dog. Yeah, it's there protecting you. And only the blessed can understand the value of that. And my whole intention to the book is to make people aware that there is this magical divine being right in front of you. Embrace it to its fullest, because it's going to change your life. So
Yeah, and all that is so beautiful. And I think through by talking about this book, Manjari, one is getting to know so much about life itself. It's not only
yes,
talking about an animal, the human
yes,
bond and human and dog relationship that we're talking about. We're talking about so much of life, and it's hidden sometimes treasures that
yes,
we must sift through also.
yes,
Talking about now the 9 sutras that you talk about, and that's something I think is the real soul, the jaan of this book.
yeah,
Are these doctrines actually, and the codes and the sutras that you talk about. And these
yeah,
sutras, as you go through this, ladies and gentlemen, is about surrendering oneself, if I can say, whether you talk about atma samarpan or namaste atman or karuna, ahimsa, and all those 9 codes.
yeah.
Why are you talking about these 9 codes actually, and how?
Well, so the book, like I said, is divided into understanding a dog and looking at a dog as a spiritual component. Okay, and I just didn't want this book to be a telling of things. I wanted to involve people into following a cult movement. I want to create a movement called the DOGtrine of Peace, and it's not just loving dogs. It's how you benefit from dogs, and it couldn't just be a one-way process. It could have to be a two-way process. So I realized that I had to have, and I already had it in my head, I had to have a process by which a human being, whoever, no matter who it is, could go through the 9 steps of the DOGtrine to attain the highest bliss. Whatever, highest bliss, spiritual awakening, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. And this process comes from interacting with the dogs. So when I say surrender yourself to dogs, or whatever, I've given techniques of
Nine
meditating
codes.
with dogs. Sorry?
The 9 codes, actually, the
The
9 codes.
ninefold path. So every step along the way is a progression of from the time you adopt a dog, or even before you adopt a dog, by accepting that a dog is a soul, an entity in itself, and a soul who's there to help you along your path. From that point to the ninth step, where I don't want to reveal the whole process, but the ninefold path is a step by step, how should I say, journey into finding yourself. And I worked very hard on it, because some part of it came from experience, because I knew. So usually there is a point in the journey where most animal lovers who are really ardent activists end up hating human beings. You end up hating them because you feel so frustrated with all the cruelty and the violence, and you are so awakened and enlightened, you feel, what the hell is happening in the world? You end up hating human beings. And I wanted to take people beyond this point, because you can't hate human beings. You have to take them along with you to create a path of peace and a world of peace. You are not living in isolation with the dogs. You have to survive with all these human beings, billions of human beings, in a world of peace, in an aura of peace. And that is why this ninefold path takes you beyond hating human beings to step into a world which is detached. I mean, there's so many ways I've said that and how to do
No,
it.
I think this is one great and crucial aspect that you're talking about, because in our experience, when we see around, and we saw even in pandemic, I can talk about my personal experience that, I saw this lady who was my neighbor. She used to go and feed some of these dogs, so that, we were thinking of feeding so many human beings who needed it, but also to dogs. So basically, again, bringing everyone together. And that's what you're talking about.
Yes, because the process is not in isolation. You have to go together, and just me following the doctrine of peace is not going to be enough, because it's a like I said, it's 5 into 2 multiplication. It has to multiply. So when I share my journey with another person, and the other person follows the doctrine of peace, it kind of rubs off into each one of us. It multiplies, and so the whole place around you, your neighborhood, your society, the world is expected to be peaceful if each one of us follows the ninefold path. And that's why I wanted to give a definite. It wasn't supposed to be vague. There's no vagueness about it. It's all very specific. It's all very doable. It's all very practical. It's not at all difficult. So that's how I just realized that I had to give them a solid takeaway from the book, and which was the DOGtrine itself.
So Vasundhara, of course, has a deeper connection, and she talks when she writes all this, and her comment talks about her deep emotion when she says animal activism is really very scary. It is unavoidable to develop a distaste for your own kind, especially when you see this kind of cases of cruelty. So that's something that, maybe you can talk about that, on one hand, that we need to celebrate, we need to understand the joy of it all when we have dogs around. Also, we see sometimes that people maybe misunderstand, or they do not comprehend in the right kind of manner that they should. And this is what maybe this reading of this book will bring about, the right kind of understanding. So to make everyone aware, and to make everyone also part of your own process of joy, is very important, Manjiri.
Yeah, true. Activism sometimes can get scary, because, like I said, the person who is working in that field feels so frustrated and annoyed and angry with the world that the repercussions could be different, could be actually antagonizing the people you're trying to change. And that is why I have included that in the process, in the journey, the ninefold path, that even activists and even animal lovers have to go through that stage of transforming themselves, because, like I said, the world is filled with human beings, and we have to live with them, and we're all important. Humanity, humaneness is all important, and well, that's how it is.
And do you also think that the world is becoming more aware? I mean, now that we see, so many things which the dogs need. I mean, in terms of right from the food that we began with, so all those shops, I mean, everything which was made available, to now so many other things that are available now for dogs as well. I mean, that's a very different aspect that I'm talking about, but which also means that more and more people you share that feeling together. For example, so many people in these comments are sharing the pain, and they're connecting here, talking about it all, and so they also feel that what do all the dogs need, and so those requirements are getting fulfilled as well, more and more. Do you think?
Definitely there is a change, because when I was growing up and I was taking care of dogs, the kind of reactions I would get from the society, from people, from neighborhoods, and now when I see youngsters so actively involved in taking care of dogs, like in the pandemic when everything was shut, hundreds of people across the country stepped out to feed dogs and animals, and that was such a brilliant thing. It just showed that the spirit of humanity was still alive. But compared to the number of people who are against this, it's still very small. The change has to be sweeping. We need this across the world. So definitely there is change. Definitely we are heading in the right direction as far as animal lovers and the growing sense of awareness is concerned. But it needs to be multifold. It needs to be much, much more.
Since Krish's question is coming quite frequently, he wants to talk about your writing process from the idea to the finished manuscript. But I want to actually relate it to the book also. Even this book has a certain structure which you have devised on your own, which is very interesting. So, for example, you weave in interviews, your own stories, anecdotes to, let's say, instances from Mahabharata to some other experiences. So, this whole structuring I found also personally very, very interesting as you have woven the book together. But taking on from Krish's question, the writing process from idea to manuscript.
Yes, so Krish, I will kind of briefly tell you that since I write mysteries and thrillers, I do a lot of research, which I also did for this book. And everything comes to me whenever I'm writing a book, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. The first thing that comes to me is characters. Okay, the characters are the ones that really I see them in my dreams. They just appear to me. So in this book, the dog is of course the main character, but in my thrillers, the characters appear, and along the way, the plot unravels gradually. So I don't literally sit down and write it all out, but it's like if I'm going on a walk, ideas just come to me and the process just starts. For this book particularly, I think I knew my theory very well. I knew what I wanted to convey. I was extremely structured in my thinking as far as what I wanted to convey. But like I said, I wanted it to be supported by actual voices, people who had actually experienced what I had also experienced. So if you see, there are about 25 animal lovers who've spoken in the book, and I haven't doctored or monitored anything that they've said. It's their own voice. They're from different parts of the world. They're not connected at all. But the bottom line of all that they're saying is how much they love their animals and what a difference they brought into their lives. So collecting these were a very important part of the structuring of the novel. Not just collecting them, then putting them in the right places. That was very difficult because you see, generally everyone loves the dogs. Everyone's got some kind of an experience. So I had these different chapters, like I said, creativity and dogs as saviors, dogs as healers, dogs, reaching out from beyond. So I had to place them, in these different areas and sections so that they conveyed best what that chapter was saying. So, this whole, when I think of it, I really realized it was a difficult book to write. I'm going to admit it to you. And after the book was over, I needed 2 weeks of no dogs, no book, no writing, no human being stage. I was in that kind of a stage where I just wanted to be alone. It was such an intense journey for me that for 2 weeks after the book, I just said, just leave me alone. And this is something I'm sharing for the first time. But
Really?
Writing this book was very difficult, and difficult because I knew that I was giving it my best. I was giving it my life. I was giving it every single loving emotion that I could find, or even any experience that I could find. I was putting it in that, and it sucked. It literally sucked out everything from me. And so 2 weeks after I finished the book, I just don't want to speak to anyone. I wanted to shut myself in a room and just be. So it was difficult.
But what a brilliant output it is, an outcome, and what a beautiful product in terms of this book. And in fact, if I wanted to give award for only the title and the idea, then this should definitely go to Doctrine of Peace. I mean, this idea, which of course comes from very strong and true emotions and feelings, and a collective voice that she tries to gather, Manjiri, in her book. I think is really, really commendable. Let me read one of the comments coming in. How can youngsters play important role in this process of Doctrine of Peace? So how youngsters should actually be initiated more into it? Though I've seen lots of youngsters actually loving their dogs so much, and all of them are. So I don't really see a huge difference here. But I think the question coming from Sonia, of course.
Yeah. So definitely, I think we need to start young, because adults are already kind of rigid, would be difficult to teach. But if we start very young, if we introduce the doctrine to children in schools, this whole process of awareness would start at a very young age. And it would, while they grow up, it's definitely going to help them in their lives. Science has proved that children who grow up with dogs become better human beings, are stress-free, they're good at studies, they're sociable, they get along well with people, so they become responsible. So definitely all these benefits are already there. But along with that, they would definitely help make the world a better place as they grow up and turn into responsible, loving, compassionate adults. So yes, we need to start young.
How did your own family react? I mean, of course, so there is this world that we have family, we have friends, we have other companions, and here is a dog who brings in a different kind of relationship altogether within that milieu, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk about that kind of connect again here, being
My
with everyone but being with one, kind of a thing.
Yeah, my family has totally been into this because for the last 35 plus years, they've been taking care of street dogs. So
Okay.
all of us have been, including my husband, from my mother's side, and all of us have looked after street dogs, hundreds of dogs for many years. That is one part. When I started writing this book, okay, definitely it's a different thing to actually be working on the street with a dog and writing about it. So I asked my sister to give her, she's got a story in it. I asked my husband to contribute, and they did. I guess they didn't understand the gravity of the book till they actually contributed to it. It was when they wrote and they realized what is happening here, because obviously I kept saying, hey, I'm writing a book and it's about dogs, so everybody thinks it's about dogs, it's okay. But when they started contributing and I asked them certain things, and they poured their heart into their writings, that was when they realized what was actually happening here. And then my sister Sonia, who just commented
Wrote
there, I
on
have
it,
to,
yeah.
yeah, so she's my sister. So when she read the book, so she's also been working with dogs all her life. When she read the book, her reaction, family always reacts very oddly. I know that. Somebody will say kindly less, somebody will say ha chandli less. Like they like to support you. They've always supported me.
Yeah.
But when she read the book, her reaction really moved me. She used to call me up at 12 in the night and say, what exactly are you trying to say when you say this sentence? She dissected every sentence of mine in the book and analyzed it and assimilated it. And she said, Manjiri, your book is amazing. Now, coming from anybody would say, your sister would say that, but not from Sonia. She's very, very dissectional. She hates reading. So this was she had told me that when you write nonfiction, I'm going to read it page to page, cover to cover. She did it and she gave me the best response possible.
Okay. So that's very nice and beautiful. But if you have to now personally take out some of these points and say that, this is the takeaway, as you rightly said, that I didn't want to talk to anyone in your own
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
But as you rightly said in your chapters, you're saying they are healers, they are spiritual part. I mean, supporters, well-wishers, companions, all these things that you talk about. The yoga part, the creativity part, the religious aspect, the divinity, all this you bring into this. And it becomes such a holistic experience, I can tell you. And I must again once request all of you to lay your hands on this book, go and read it, and it would be a life-changing experience in a way. I am thinking, and as I told you, I've been uninitiated, but I think I'm very, very eager to now join it. Any other takeaway from here that the thoughts coming in, and maybe which will lead to the next book from here?
Well, I would say if there was one thing that you need to take away from this book is love and compassion can solve anything in the world, any problem, any issue, any relationship. But to keep that love and compassion alive in you, you need something more than what's happening around you. You need a dog in your life. And please, I would say, don't immediately go out and get a dog into your life, because it's a big responsibility. Okay, it's not something I'm going to tell you to do. But please be a little more aware. Start by feeding the dogs on the street. Start by interacting with dogs. Start by looking into their eyes. I can positively tell you that there will be a positive change in your life, and your process of awakening and awareness will begin. And from there, you will take off on your own. I don't need to guide you. Nobody needs to guide you. It's an internal process. So all I'm going to tell you to take away from this book, from anything, is that believe in love, believe in compassion, believe in humanity, believe in dogs.
And I can also say, having known the kind of writing that you've done, Manjari, that the next detectives, because you have a lot of detectives in your novel, can always
Yeah.
have a dog. In fact, the dog can become the protagonist and take the
Yes.
detective along,
Yes, of
isn't it?
course. Yes, of course. Brilliant idea. I do have a cat as a protagonist in one of the books, but I'll start with a dog now.
Okay, okay. So, any other thoughts as a writer? I mean, and you can talk also about this whole writing journey briefly, and how has it been? 18 books, as you were just introduced, of writing and
Um,
further journey.
I think the next book I would write, I would love to kind of introduce other animals into this, because you see, animals, no matter who it is, they're all spiritual beings, and they're all there to for us. In the sense, they're all there to help us become aware of our existence. They are there as representatives of nature, of the universe, and to help us be in alignment with nature. So I don't know, I might write something else in connection to this, not on dogs anymore, because I've given it everything I have, but maybe another book with another animal. I don't know, it'll all depend on how the kind of experiences I have, because it's not just a book, it's my own life. So I guess it'll depend on that. Yeah.
And a message to all those people who are watching us, and all those people, also who are pet lovers, dog lovers, and they love the idea of having a dog. So a message of peace and love to all these in your
Yes.
community, in our community, in that our
Yes.
universe, Manjari.
Yes.
A message
Well,
to them.
I've already said this, that dogs are in your life for a reason. They choose you, you don't choose them. They come into your life. You will understand the reason as time goes by. It could be for a simple thing that you're lonely, or could be to save your life. You don't know what it is. It will unravel by and by. But dogs do choose you, and they're in your life for a reason. So take this relationship very seriously. It is not to be taken lightly. The dogs are not just pets to be tied in the house or for showpieces or anything. They are sentient beings. They have emotions. They care for you beyond your understanding, beyond anybody will ever love you. So treat them as special beings, and your lives will be very different.
The ambassadors of peace and love, as rightly Manjari
Yes,
is saying here.
yes,
And why don't you
yes.
show the book once again to all our viewers who have been watching us and who
I'm
are
going to share
sharing
this
their
one.
own experience and comments with us. And we really, really thank you.
This
This
is
is
the
Doctrine
book.
of Peace by Dr. Manjiri Prabhu. And
Yeah,
what a wonderful experience this is. I would rather call it an experience that more than a book, actually, because when you read
yes,
it, when you read, an ocean of philosophical to spiritual to creative to life celebrating experiences that this book actually brings about. And I must congratulate you, Manjari, once again for
thank
writing
you.
this book and all the creative journey that you've had. And you've been bringing us a lot of delight through your own experiences, which you express also in your writing. So, right from science fiction to making you understand what science means when she
Yeah,
talks about dogs, and the scientific way of how they treat things
yeah.
is a wonderful idea. And any last word and thought, Manjari, before we actually wrap up this session?
So I just want to say that this book is not only for dog lovers, it's a book for everyone. Okay, and it brings in, it is through this book, what I'm trying to really say is that your mind, your spirit, your heart, all three come together to help you find inner peace. And it is supported by science, because I talk about brain activity, I talk about how it helps your brain, I talk about vibration. So it's how it works at a vibrational level, it works at a psychological level. So I've given you all these supporting arguments for the doctrine to work. So don't treat it like a philosophy which has come out of the air and just out of my love. It is a scientific philosophy, a psychological philosophy. How should I call it? A philosophical philosophy. It's a logical philosophy. It's a loving philosophy. So try it out. Read the book. Try if it works for you. There may be other philosophies that work for you. I don't argue that. But try this one out. I can guarantee that it's going to change your life.
And surely I agree with that totally, and I endorse that totally here. As somebody who's known Manjari as a human being, as somebody who brings passion, forth and before us through her writings and the journey that she's always had. And I really recommend that you should read the book, go and lay your hands on it. Readomania, Dipankar Mukherjee, thank you so much. And we must here thank you for this brilliant session, Manjari. the Nehru Center, of course, and all the
Yes.
art lovers, again, the people who love creativity, people who love culture, craft, and everything else, and the life around us. I think that's what we are celebrating here.
Yes.
And this conversation, thank you for bringing so much here through this book and through this conversation, Manjiri, telling us all about the beautiful world that we live in with dogs, and which will be a beautiful world with them all along.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, Manjiri Prabhu. I also
Thank
thank
you.
Amish Tripathi ji once again, and Vinny, thank you for all the brilliant technical support that you bring in
Yes.
here. Yeah, and all the viewers and participants who've joined us here, thank you so much. Not only reading the book, but I think experiencing your own pain, your own feelings here also in this session. And on behalf of everyone, all of you here, I thank you. And Rakhee, Bakshee signing off. Thank you so much, Manjiri, once again.
Thank you.
And yes.